really like having to do things twice. So that when Dio's story is like, oh, you want to record? Okay, cool. I'm just going to pretend that you pressed F10 twice and not record anything. Thanks, Dio story, thanks. So the big kind of hyped up update of massive map fixes and weapon balance changes has come through and is now live with a absolutely bloody huge change list. Literally, I have to press page down at least 15 times to get through it, even on my 1080p monitor, which is a big thing. Like, seriously, when they say longer than a stalemate on Hydro, they seriously fucking mean it. And yes, I am alt-tabbed right now as I kind of scroll through the update on my other monitor. Big thing, general stuff, I really don't care about all that. One thing though, items with... items that are not... Yeah, items that are basically not standard, aka that would count vintage... Oh, Jesus. Oh, you skip spaces when you do this now, do you? Ew, okay. Basically, no strangers, no unusuals, no vintage. Will not be used cannot be selected as a crafting ingredient unless you hit this. Because if you did this, then everything will show up and you can accidentally, you know, craft away all your strangers and anything that's named vintage, etc. Click this, and it can't. Which is a lot nicer and is possibly going to be a lot better. It means people might actually use the standard crafting ingredients instead of just going all the way to custom blueprint and being like, oh god, you guys do this here as well. You ignore spaces here as well. Valve, you wait, hang on. Did you just ruin my backpack? No, you didn't. Okay, you just ignore spaces in that for some reason. Why? Valve, go fix that. There's a reason I have spaces in my backpack, thanks. Not much else showing in the main standard. I mean, there are a few things in the standard updates, or the standard general fixes that I really don't really care about all that much. Fixed suicide death toll showing the dead player's last deployed weapon instead of skull and crossbones. Yay. That's something which was kind of being a tad bit annoying. Map changes, I'm not going to go into detail about, although I expect Star to go into massive, huge detail about how Badlands has been changed so that that little rock between Mid and Spire no longer ruins jumping. He's going to love that. He's already been on Twitter going crazy about it. But for us, we're going through the weapons because that's what I like to do. So the Scout has had a fair few changes. First of all, it's kind of a critical. Instead of taking mini crits, when it's used you only take 25% extra damage. That can be seen as both a buff and a nerf in a sense. It's a buff in that you take 10% less damage normally. It's a nerf in that I believe, now obviously I haven't gone through playtesting on this, but I believe it does not count as a mini crit for the sense of stacking. Like I can get this, and then moving faster, yay. I do a heck of a lot more damage, ideal mini crits, but it could still potentially stack on you in the sense of if you're covered in, I don't know, this is possibly dead to playtesting, but it might be a case of you could be covered in Girati and will deal with a criticola and you will take 35% and 25% damage for a loss of damage. Let's just put it that way. It will be a loss of damage. The next big thing is partially set actually. The Milkman set has been changed so that you no longer have 25 HP. Instead, you leave a calling card on your victims. And this whole calling card thing kind of took me by surprise when I first saw it. I bought. Calling card is that. It just drops that when the person died. It's I don't really understand it. And it fades away very quickly. I don't know if this means the freeze cam now rests on the calling card, or if it still rests on you, or if they can see the calling card when they die, or if they ragdoll, that sort of thing. It's a bit kind of, you know, I don't really see the importance of it all that much. Also, random side note, when you're using the display damage as text when you shoot someone, it used to hide mini crit and critical hit. Now it doesn't. Unless that's a change in a different patch, but I've not noticed this. It's only now that I'm noticing it with this update, which is pretty damn nice, I must say, because sometimes, you know, sometimes I wouldn't see mini crits and full crits at long range because that was hidden, because I was using the display damage text. So that's a handy thing. Let's try and get to the console to get rid of that. So anyway, the short stuff now is a 20% bonus healing while deployed. Again, I'll make it perfectly clear, while deployed. A lot of these updates, a lot of these changes, while deployed means you need to have the weapon out to gain the effect. 20% bonus healing, yeah, it's helpful. I mean, small or medium health is now, instead of, actually I don't know what medium health does, 63, it now does an extra, say 1275, so it's about, yeah, it's about the same, because 125 to 150, actually that was 20%, so yeah, you're getting the healing of if you had 150 HP, but you don't have 150 HP, that's something to remember. You don't have that 25 HP buffer on you at all times. Yes, you can heal yourself back up to full health just as quickly with standard health kits, or even with the Man Milk, as if you had 150, but you don't have 150, so that's something to bear in mind. In exchange, you take a lot more push force from damage, from explosive damage, and from air blasts, which is, let's just say that's a loss. So I'm going to start this. No, not going to go there. Let's just change loadout. And we're going to have this Pyro start to air blast. And you actually kind of saw how far I was going there. You know, decent enough length, but, or decent enough distance, but it's not a huge thing. And you're out of ammo already. Let's get you some ammo back by killing you and having you respawn with full ammo. Yeah, you go sailing. Seriously, you go absolutely fucking across the map now, basically, from pushback. I consider that not a double-edged sword. Bad in the sense of, you may not want to be pushed back that far because you may get knocked off the map or knocked into something else that's bad. It's also possibly good in that you may be able to use the increased knockback to surf your way out of danger. So, it's kind of a skill-based cap thing. So, when I say increase, it's actually physically listed as 80%, which is, let's just basically say it's almost double. The Winger has had an interesting buff in that while it's active, you have 20% greater jump height. So, let's give this an example. You can see here, Frying Pan, Winger is in the loadout, but not active. Decent jump height. With Winger active, you can actually go quite high, about the high as its rafters. Actually, I don't think I bash off these rafters with the pan, but I do with the Winger, or at least I seem to. Also, I think it only seems to affect, I don't know if it seems to be affecting the double jump as much, or maybe it's just the placebo effect. I don't know if it's affecting the double jump, but you do jump a decent bit, which is handy. You know, you'd be like, oh, I wouldn't make that jump normally. Winger, go for it, sort of thing. So, it's handy that way. And as I stated, special delivery, remove that. So now we're off to Soldier. We're off to Soldier. Do I need to be in this box to actually change class? Wow, I didn't have that problem earlier. So now we're off to Soldier. First one that's listed as the battalion's backup has had a little bit of a change. You had an extra 50% sentry damage resistance and now to 50% while the banner is active, while everything else is 35% resistance, which is related to the fact that the black box set, I don't have the black box set active, okay, never mind. That is because the black box set no longer has that 15% or 10% additional sentry damage resistance at all times. Instead, that has been moved to the backup, which now has, which basically makes sentries rather terrible against your team as you're going through it. In addition, your team, no, actually, never mind. Sorry, that's something else. In addition, rage is now dealt through damage done instead of damage received. But it's still a lot of damage. You need to think it's 600. Like a full crit, I think with a standard buff banner, it'd probably be up already. Or I might not be up already and I'm probably just not getting it right. I need to turn your force attack off. Yeah, as you can see, that was a lot of damage. The one interesting thing I did note with some of these effects is that... Oh, that was new. You can see a little shield icon down there by the bottom left next to my health. A few of those icons have been popping up. More stuff like like the battalion's back up. There's also one for the next thing I'm going to go on, which is the Conjurer. Conjurer has been updated a little bit. Hang on, let's get you to stop attacking. Still does a lot. Well, Conjurer does a fair bit. Still, even though it's mentioned in the patch notes that Conjurer now deals damage, or now builds rage for damage done, that was an effect from a previous patch, so I don't know why it's listed again. Still, yeah. Unless it was a case where they fixed it so it does damage with both. So Conjurer, in addition to doing the standard heal on damage, you now get a speed buff, which is disciplinary action style speed buff, which is actually pretty damn decent. I'm liking it, especially with the length of it. That's pretty damn good. I'm liking that speed buff. That's much needed buff to the weapon, which was fairly underused because there really, there wasn't much point. You could heal enough on the black box as it was. Beggar's Bazooka has been changed. Apparently there was an exploit which allowed players to hold a set fixed number of rockets by reload cancelling. I've not come across that myself. But the one big thing that they changed is that misfired rockets now remove one load of rocket from the clip. Yeah. That's kind of, to me, that's kind of ruined the weapon a little bit, because what I used to do, I used to have a little kind of thing that I didn't do much. You can probably tell from the strange part of it is I used to do a thing where I'd use the misfire to jump. That was a terrible attempt at misfire jumping. But I attempt to use the misfire jump to jump up in the air and then use the rocket barrage. But now the rocket barrage only does 2 rockets instead of 3, which is really annoying. It also makes this weapon a lot worse on times 10 servers. Not that I've used it on a times 10 server, but it's going to be a lot worse on times 10 servers. Actually, I'm going to leave the Conjurer on that. Black box rocket explosion damage has been changed, if you'll listen carefully. Hang on, I'll get far away so the rocket launch sound doesn't affect it. Gonna hear the difference. A similar thing is applied to the original in that it's now has the rocket sounds from Quake. Quake fans will probably like that. I don't use the original much, or at least I don't use the original until I get my strange one, so that's not going to affect me, or it's not going to worry me much. And then the big one that I don't like about this, Liberty Launcher no longer has one less rocket in the clip, it now has a 25% damage penalty. Thanks, Valve. Thanks for ruining this weapon, because it now only does, well, with close range damage it still has a bit of a ramp up, but instead of 90 damage, you're now doing 45, about 68, I think. Is it 68? I think my math is off that. 67.5, 68. If we add, even when we add a ramp up, it's only doing about 85. It's not even doing, even with ramp up, it's not even doing standard rocket damage. Even with mini crits. Also, you see the mini crit above the health there. Even with mini crits, it's now only doing about 107. So yeah, they've done Thomas Slav on the Liberty Launcher, and they've now nerfed it into all oblivion that it's useless. Even with 4 rockets in the clip, it's pretty damn bad. Now I'm going to stick out and scroll down a bit. The Cow Mangler. Oh, the Cow Mangler. First off, Cow Mangler, instead of having 5 rockets, only has 4 rockets. So yeah, you don't have that little extra rocket. But they removed that 10% damage penalty, so it now does the full 90. They've removed that slow reload, and it has new particles and sounds. This is fun. Oh, that looks so good. This one's new sound for when it's fully reloaded, which is kind of handy if you're doing the charge shots. Oh, this... Just by adding those sounds, and changing that particle to be like a proper kind of rocket laser, to be instead of that just kind of crappy kind of laser thing it was, just by doing that, this is so much better. I know it's a placebo effect, but this just feels so much more fun to use now, and I'm actually probably going to end up using it because of that. Because with Liberty Launcher being so terrible now. Also, Escape Plan now marks you for death in the same way as Rescue Ranger, and it goes running urgently. But it still does 65 damage, it still gets random critical hits. Not nerfed enough, Valve, not nerfed enough. And yeah, as I mentioned, Tank Buster set no longer has that 20% damage resistance. I can actually take the soft cap off, put my long wave back on. And no longer has the sentry resistance. Oh, it's 20%, not 15. Or 10, sorry. I removed that. Another calling card. I really don't get those calling cards. Off to the Pyro. Apparently, Flog had a bug, which the progress being reset by touching a resupply cabinet. It's gone. That's the standard fix. Big Dig, Power Jack. In exchange for Gas Jockey's gear no longer giving you 10% faster move speed in general, you now have 50% faster move speed while the Power Jack is active. In exchange, while the Power Jack is active, you take 20% more damage from everything. This is as opposed to the... This is in exchange to the Power Jack taking 20% damage or 20% melee vulnerability while active and the 10% bullet vulnerability from everything. They're kind of additive, in a sense. I don't know. It's kind of average. It's kind of the worst way they could have averaged it out. I wouldn't mind maybe a 10 or 15% damage to everything. But 20% to everything is not really particularly fun. But it means you can actually move a fair bit faster. But you have to have it out, so there's no running around with the flamethrower trying to flamer dance. You know, running after someone. You actually have to catch up to them with the Power Jack. It does help. That means the Power Jack can be used for finishing a lot more, because you move a lot faster with it. Again, hit or miss. Really depends on how you see it. Off to demo now. First thing, Expert Ordnance no longer has the 10% fire resistance. That's not really going to stop me. Big thing though, Targe now is immune to Afterburn. The Targe is immune to Afterburn. Now, this only applies to the standard Targe. This does not apply to the screen. The screen is still vulnerable to Afterburn, but... No Afterburn! Yay! I'm gonna play in fire all day once I get some health. Yay! No Afterburn! Even though the Afterburn was like fairly minimal on a Targe because, you know, the 50% resistance to it. You can die now. But no Afterburn is a nice minor buff to the Targe. Not that I didn't really think it needed it, but it's handy to have. In addition, the loose cannon has had a major change. Despite that the description says differently, the fuse time is now only 1 second. Yeah. And range no longer affects the direct impact damage. Because I think before it used to do a lot more damage at long range if you hit them. Kind of similar to the Crusader's crossbow, that it had a kind of an inverse damage profile. Also, I inadvertently showcased the additional change. You can now double dunk. If you directly impact someone with the cannonball within half a second of the bomb explosion, you get that set of particle effect, and the double dunk is a mini crit. As you can see here. No. Oh! That was, okay, the knockback is still there. Yeah. I don't actually know if that's 70, if that's 115. That was 115 total. I think it's because it bounced off something. Nope. Okay. I'm not used to loose cannon yet, so... I'm not terribly used to the loose cannon as of yet, but it means that this loadout is going to be, without that change, this loadout is going to be a lot more fun. Loose cannon, Scottish Resistance, and Scotsman's Skull Cutter. Yeah, this loadout is going to be interesting now with that change. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. Off to the heavy. as I said, the buffalo steak has been slightly kind of nerf buffed. Delicacy bar has been changed so that you now heal 100 by using it instead of 15. So it's slightly comparable to sandwich. So instead of healing 60, you now heal 100, which is kind of handy because there are some cases where you could be able to use chocolate instead of the sandwich to heal you, because obviously the chocolate has no recharge timer. You don't have that 24-second recharge timer that the sandwich has. So there were some cases where you could be using the sandwich. You only need to heal like, what was it, 80 or possibly even 180 damage, something like that. You'd use it, but then you possibly might be without your sandwich for the next 24 seconds because there was no health kit nearby to recharge it, whereas the chocolate will firstly be able to heal you very quickly. Well, not as quickly, but you can still heal yourself in one shot, and you get that little buff up to 350 for 30 seconds. So it's a nice little kind of nerf buff. Why did I say nerf buff? It's just a general buff overall. That's all the heavy has, actually. He had very little. For Engie, Rescue Ranger has had a minor buff in damage. One thing I did notice is that at long range it was like 18 damage a bolt. I think it's now up to about 20 to 22 or something like that. Seems to be averaging at about 20 there. Okay. So it's a slight it's a slight increase in damage. I think it's going from 50 to a close range of about 60, so it's slightly more usable. Building healing is up from 75 to, or from 50 to 75, which is a lot much appreciated. I was actually using this recently to heal sentry from long range. The fact that I needed 4 shots to be able to fully heal this meant that a heavy, even at medium to long range, is able to out DPS it. Whereas if I had 75 healing, it probably would have lasted a little bit longer, or at least long enough for my teammates to kill the heavy and or give me some support. There was an interesting change at the short Circus. It now only uses 18 ammo per shot, and it fires slightly faster. So you can now kind of spam it a bit more. Still kind of useless to me though. You can use it 11 times with your entire metal supply, but to me it's still just a tad useless. The Wrangler was nerfed. Accuracy at long range with the Wrangler was nerfed. It's slightly less accurate, so your auto aim isn't as good. And if you die, the shield over your sentry is removed after 1 second, as opposed to the in addition to your sentry being unavailable for 3 seconds, which gives the enemy team a 2-second window in which to fucking wail on the sentry to absolutely destroy it at its standard health before it activates once again. And yeah, the Gunslayer mini sentries have been eventually finally nerfed after much giving out on the forums. Well, okay, maybe not the exact way everyone will want to, but they no longer regenerate health while the sentry is building. They still deploy at full health, they still have 100 health. And as someone who has a strange gunslinger, and I use them a fair bit, I will still say they still need to be nerfed. The health regen thing was actually good if they would change it so that the sentries start with little health while they're building. But I still think that a big change that the mini sentries need to be knocked down to 90 health so that a single non-Liberty launcher, non-cow mangler rocket can destroy them in one shot. What else was there? Ah, yes, the medic. Medic has had an interesting range of effects. Vaccinator can now fully protect against crit damage, but if it protects against a crit damage, it depletes Uber based on the damage prevented. I don't really have a test for that. That's something that's going to have to... Oh, I screwed that up again. I might have screwed up my audio once again. That's obviously just going to be dependent on playtesting. You'll see it as it is. And the other two main changes are to this set, as I like to call it, the Medieval Medic set, which is unfortunately no longer gives you the +1 healing, which is a bitch. That's kind of the main reason I used all these things, was the +1 healing. I even had the hat for it, but I'll probably still use this loadout anyway. The Crusader's crossbow has been given a bit of, That's a good change. Instead of firing arrows, it now fires a bloody huge syringe. And it's also been given new particle effects, as you can see there. And as you might be able to see, it fires a damn huge syringe instead of an arrow. Still sticks them to the wall. Okay, that's good to know. It still sticks them to the wall. But it's not that, you know, seeing an arrow lodged in your teammate's head was a bad thing. But now you're going to see a huge bloody syringe in their eye socket sort of thing. It's alright, I guess. And the reload animation, as you can see, has been smoothed out. It's no longer have a short delay before the super sped up reload animation. The reload animation now begins as soon as it leaves. So you still have the same DPS, you still have the same firing rate as it was before. So that hasn't been changed. There was apparently a fix also to be able to heal players. There was a fix you being able to heal players with us who had a block healing on them, but I thought that was fixed ages ago, so I don't know why that was only stuck in now. But the other big change is the quick fix now has overheal, albeit 50% overheal. So it does give you a little tiny bit of overheal, which allows it to remain slightly competitive against the other metiguns. And as you can see, the handy thing about it having such a huge heal rate is that it can actually build that overheal very quickly. It also doesn't seem to be affecting the other thing is that also with only 50% overheal, it still does not affect the uber charge build rate. Because as you know, with all the other metiguns, once someone gets to 142.5% health, I think that's what the number is, the uber build rate drops below, or drops to half of it or something. Basically, yeah, which is why with other metiguns you need to keep changing your heal target in order to build uber at the fastest rate. With this, you can still stay stuck on someone like you were before, and you will build overheal at full speed all the way, unless another medic comes in and decides to overheal your guy completely. Sandy, and also the quick fix uber is no longer affected by the shotguns with pushback. So basically, the fan no longer affects the quick fix uber, but I thought it was already unaffected in the first place. Oh well. And also, oh yes, also the other final thing, the medic is now affected by the uber even when there's no heal target. Because before, when you were going to deploy the uber, you had to be healing someone. Otherwise, you'd be like, oh, I'm just healing someone. Oh crap, my target is dead while I'm in the middle of this uber, and I now have low health because, let's say it was a crit that killed your patient. I'm now dead. Now you can just deploy. Let's actually build it up. Now you can just deploy it. Also, the other cool thing, if you when you deploy the quick fix uber on you, you gain a bit of overheal as well, which is slightly nice. It does buff you up completely, and it allows you to, you know, stay a little bit more protected against stuff that would otherwise kill you outright. So, a handy little buff to that. Woo! But danger shield. Sniper. Well, firstly, the crocodile set no longer protects you against headshots. Valve, I don't know why you didn't just move the cannot be killed by headshots to the City Sleeper, because that would have made the City Sleeper very interesting in the whole it cannot deal headshots and you cannot take headshots. That would have been very nice to have. In exchange, the danger shield now has 50% bullet damage resistance. It protects you against quick scope shots, headshots. Doesn't do much against slightly charged headshots. Basically, I think I calculated this, possibly might be off by a bit, but basically, if a headshot is charged enough that it will kill a full health without overheal demo in a headshot, it'll kill a danger shield sniper in a headshot. And I don't like that. The one thing I liked about the cannot be killed by headshots is that it was the perfect counter to aimbot snipers. And I've actually had it before where I've been playing, and you know, the obvious aimbot snipers join the other team. You know what I mean by the obvious aimbot sniper. He'd be like looking over there, you'll be wandering around as a spy, and all of a sudden he'd be looking that way, and then bam, your headshot, you're all the way over there. You activate your dead ringer, and he's just sitting there looking that way, constantly headshotting you like 180 degrees behind him. You know, that kind of aimbot sniper. The set before, where it had immunity to headshots, was very fun at trolling them. because I've been able to be like, you hit me with a quickscope headshot with your aimbot. I killed you with a fully charged shot from my city sleeper, and I'm now taunting at you because I'm dominating you because you can't touch me with your headshots. That's what it was like. And I've actually dominated aimbot snipers, and I've had to get them to lead the game because they couldn't kill me. It was so fun. I don't know why they didn't change that. It also means this entire set now has a huge swath of changes. I mean, you can see it right here. 20% max health, a little bit of bullet damage resistance. You have explosive damage vulnerability, which comes from the danger shield. You have fire damage vulnerability from the bushwhacker. You also still need a calling card. Those calling cards just make no sense. The bizarre bargain was changed. Apparently there was a bug in that the starting charge rate was minus 40%, and I can say I did notice that. I did notice that it seemed to be unusually slow for what was minus 20%. Also, the nice somersault. If I was high GPS, I'd have the somersault sound file here. In exchange, the max charge rate has been capped at 200%. You might think that's a lot because, as again, after 2 heads, it's now, instead of minus 20%, it's now standard charge rate. However, the max charge rate of plus 200%, or being just 200%, is actually only 6 heads, as opposed to what I originally thought was 10. I originally thought it was 10 because going from minus 20 up to plus 100 at 10% every time. But it's actually only 6 heads instead of 7 heads, so it's a tiny, tiny nerf buff. Not that I've actually had a case where I've gotten it up to like 6-7 heads, so not that it would really affect me, but still. Oh, wow, that didn't even hit him in the head. Hitting in the back of the head has always been a bit of a pain for me, as we've had Sniper or Pyro to come back and be able to see. Does not scroll over to a 7th head. It still treats it like you have a 7th head, so you are allowed to miss a scope shot or get a body shot without losing it, as per standard. But it still only has a cap of 6 heads as opposed to 7. Cozy Camper has been changed. You no longer have a movement penalty while it is active. In exchange, you have 20% damage vulnerability to everything. As you can see, have the Cozy Camper on, moving normally, but you are 20% more vulnerable to everything, so it's as if you have 100 health. So there's, it gives you a bit of a trade-off. Oh, you can, health regen 1 second. Health regen 1 per second. You also, have basically feck all health as it is. Alright, I suppose. Not great. And last thing, Spy has a couple of changes. The biggest one I've noticed is this. The L'étranger plus 40% cloak duration. That's a loss. To prove it, just watch this. I think we all know the standard of Viswatch cloak time was at 8 or 9 seconds or something. Actually, let's do a comparison. I'll go to my standard loadout, which has this. So, watch it. You'll see how fast that cloak meter is draining. And gone. Now we switch out to the loadout with the L'étranger, and that's cloak with Viswatch again. As you can see, it's dropping a lot slower. The bars are dropping a lot slower because you have a hell of a lot more cloak now if you use L'étranger. I see lots of guys actually switching to this solely to be able to use a lot more cloak. It also gives you the opportunity to not need to use the cloak and dagger, because you can have just standard cloak, and especially with this thing giving you 15% on hit. That's a lot of cloak on hit. It's actually, in fact, that actually possibly rivals the benefit you get for the big earner. In fact, I may even have to end up changing it to use the L'étranger with the big earner, because as you can see here, big earner 30 cloak on kill. Of course, with 40% more cloak, that's pretty damn good. Also, the change, you no longer have silent decloak with the Saharan spy set. Instead, you get this while taunting. Yeah. Instead, you get a teeny tiny dust cloud going around you when you taunt. Yeah, that's kind of stupid. I don't see the point of that. And a spicicle bug of some kind. I don't know. Oh, charge meter wasn't resetting when the spy was killed. I don't think that really affected me much. Wrong loadout. There goes my exit. I just screwed up my exit by doing that. I was gonna be like, actually, hang on. About force class. No. Really? Oh god, it's bot change. Oh right, it's TF boss I'm thinking of, isn't it? Hang on. Because what else gonna beat? Or I should have said on red actually. Because what I was gonna be saying was like, now that I've gone through all these changes, I'm just gonna go leave and do some surgery.